So let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show. She will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
So, oh my goodness, I was wondering why all of you were piling in there. There you go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This does it, it does it every now and again. I am so sorry. Thank you for letting me know that. Thank you for letting me know that. But it's good to have you all with me here for Voices, another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I'm your host, Sabrina, and it's good to be back with you now that I've found my voice. Sometimes the system does that, and you just got to do your check, cross-check, and reconfirm. But let's get straight into it. We're continuing to unpack in this episode of Sabrina Speaks, the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Bill 2025. That is scheduled to be tabled on the floor of Parliament. And I heard the date was the 10th of this month. And in today's episode, because you guys said you like how we bringing it across, we break it down, your participation is key. We're going to be breaking it down in different segments today that covers exactly what this episode is titled: Rights, Residency, and Responsibilities, Cayman's Immigration Shakeup. You may see this as a shakeup based on how we're going to be breaking down a few of the clauses that we actually say. I'm going to break them down for you, and we will pretty much give an interpretation of what it is. This is not speaking on behalf of the government by no means, but I'm extrapolating it straight from the paper that's already in the public's domain and breaking it down from where I see it in layman's terms as best as I can. Now, for further information, all of the information is there. You can reach out to the Ministry of WORC. I keep getting that wrong. For your further questions or concerns, or reach out to your member of Parliament. They're the ones, should any further questions that is unearthed based on discussions that we have here come up, you can reach out to your elected members of Parliament. So we're going to be looking from new certificates. Yeah, there's a new farmhands certificate. It's a new type of work permit that persons can apply for, to stricter timelines for residency and marriage, to annual declarations and financial requirements. We will be going through those. And these amendments definitely will reshape the path to Caymanian status. And you're invited to join into the conversation. 345-936-8255 is the number to either call in and join in live on the conversation, or you can also WhatsApp that said number. That's 345-936-8255. The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general, informational, and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice, and I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. And before there we go. Got to do that again. Look at that. I know I shared that, but you guys weren't hearing me. I found that today's note. Never let the small things steal your joy. There's so much to be thankful for. So keep smiling and enjoy life. I thought that was so sweet. So sweet. Before we get into the nick of things and definitely making sure we just dive into this, because there is going to be another segment coming up after me at 7:00. So I'm making sure I'm being a good girl and kind of cut this and keeping on time just so I can respect my other content creators here on cmrtv.com. Let's go into what tonight's forecast and weather looks like. This is compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. Yes, our synopsis called for a weak frontal boundary that is expected to become stationary near northern Cuba over the next 24 hours, maintaining some light winds and possible localized showers through Wednesday evening as the pressure gradient remains slack over the Northwest Caribbean. Now, satellite analysis indicates scattered low-level clouds near sister islands with localized convection noted around Grand Cayman. Now, the forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies with 30% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid-upper 70s, and winds will be northeasterly at 5 knots or less. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Now, tomorrow's forecast Clouds called for partly cloudy skies with cloudy spells and a 30% chance of showers in the morning. Now, temperatures will rise to the mid to upper 80s with a heat index of 94 degrees. Winds will be east to northeast, 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Now, for the tides. There is a high tide that is expected at 6:58 this evening, and tomorrow morning calls for a low tide at 1:48 and another high tide at 8:43 in the morning. Sun will set this evening earlier and earlier at 5:45, and sunrise tomorrow morning. Yes, my favorite time, 6:45 in the morning. Now, the outlook is for a gradual increase in winds and seas through Thursday morning as a high pressure system associated with the frontal boundaries expected to build over the southern United States. So there you have it. I know all of you are out buying all of those area rugs and curtains and Christmas mats. So I think it's very important, or maybe you just going starting Christmas parties early, or just living the life and calling out a few friends and going places for dinner or just enjoying it. So I think it's good for me to share that with you. I didn't see any birthdays on my radar, thanks to Facebook. At least I didn't see any, but I'm still going to wish everybody who's having a birthday today that's not on my radar, happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy whatever, happy life to everyone today. Thank you for all of you guys who let me know that I had no sound, Shaka Zulu. Maybe I need to do that to pull on it out. But thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you for actually letting me know. Hi, Donnie. How are you? Missed you yesterday. Hope you're on the mend. You and Lavana. Yep, Iva, you still over there? Yep. Good evening to everyone. Hi, Miss Valerie. Thank you all for the heads up of no sound. Even Carol, my friend, you just on to fast. You just fasting, but I love you. I love you like cook food. But it's good to have you all here. Yes. Connie Bonnie is in the house as well. Miss Carol. Good evening to you, my sweet Miss Lucille. The UK is actually in the house, keeping up with us and so much more. Hi, Miss Dorothy. So good to have you, Marshall. Liz. Hi, my love. How are you? It's good to have you all here. Got a few more days left. Yeah. I guess you'll ask me hogs type is when you come back. I guess you'll have that yank too, huh? But it's all fun. Go enjoy yourself, and good to be back. We love to have you back. No place like home. You know what? Yesterday was, I saw some news before I go into the crooks and hell no. Okay. I saw, yesterday was Cyber Monday, right? And I know how all of you love to just online shop and Amazon and all this sort of stuff, but I found some stats that just blew me. I just like, OMG, for all of the money that was spent just yesterday. December 1st marked Cyber Monday. And, that is known right now to be the biggest online shopping day of the year. Now, Black Friday still tops the list for the biggest day where people just go out and shop. But where online shopping is concerned, Cyber Monday still takes the lead. And once again, the numbers are just staggering. When you compare, let's say, 22 to 23, this is based on stats from the US because we contribute to that as well because of all of us buying on Amazon and so forth, right? So I thought it was fitting based on our proximity. Guess what? Between 22 to 23, I found that $12.4 billion, yes, $12.4 billion US dollars was shown on online sales. That was up by 10% from 2022. Last year, 2024, was $13.3 billion US dollars. Again, another significant jump from 2023. Now, this year, 2025, yesterday, the stats are in $14.2 billion just in one day online shopping. That, my friends, is a 6.3 increase over last year. Now, do you know what that means? When you compare that even to here in the Cayman Islands, even though we don't have our numbers as yet from the Economics and Statistics Office yet, we know e-commerce is growing fast, and more of us, as we said it, are shopping online for electronics, for clothes, for household goods, especially with international retailers. We see it. And even though while our numbers wouldn't match exactly what's there, we're expecting it to somewhat mirror what has been happening here on island when it comes to those sales that pretty much is reported. And guys, when the ESO are doing their data, their stats, this is why it's important for us to answer those questions genuinely, because this gives us an idea of exactly what's going on. Now, if we have to measure this anything by what traffic we are seeing already, and the season has just begun. Some will say it's not started yet. It's 10 days. Well, that's also causing a huge international debate because they're thinking Christmas is 2 weeks. And now people are saying it should be for at least 4 to 6 weeks, because you can't be doing all of this preparation just for 10 days. It's what they're saying. You go and you decorate your house for what, 2 weeks? You know, that's another episode. But when do you take down your tree? It's too early. People are just putting theirs up. It all depends on when you want to do it. But what people are saying is that the feeling, the spirit of Christmas, not that we're monetizing it, making it into commercialized, it's just the whole feeling. A lot of us put a little extra into how we actually prepare our homes and all that sort of stuff for the Christmas. But they're saying 10 days is not long enough. We want to bask in that moment a little bit longer. And it is now sparking some debate where it's probably going to be a case where we're going to look at this now for a month. Because you saw what happened. We came straight out of Halloween, kind of somewhat skipped to Thanksgiving, but not here in Cayman. Oh no, because we got some information, things happening in Cayman this weekend. But what I'm saying, these numbers were so staggering. I had to share that with you because we're all about sharing and learning here, right? Yeah, we are all about sharing here. And I thought that was important. So, it's from what we're seeing, Cyber Monday is just more than a shopping spree. It's a signal to economics that gives us some kind of idea of where they're shifting, whether it's better or worse. And for us here, it is a gentle reminder of where e-commerce is going. And even though a lot of places here don't have a lot of online shopping, I can see that actually being something that we can it's coming. It is coming. Why were the come out from? You brute. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. You pick up on everything, Connie Bonnie. Nothing bad. Don't worry about it, my love. Well, you know what? Like I told you, this weekend is no different. Small business holiday market. Yes. And we got to go out and support our small businesses here in the Cayman Islands. That is taking place this Saturday from 4 until 10 at night. We are going to celebrate the season together. You something else, This Saturday, December 6th, from 4 to 10 on Cardinal Avenue and Albert Panton Street. There will be come out, and the town out there will be bustling and alive as a small business holiday market and festive evening of shopping, food, and community spirit. But guess what? That's not all. There is a clarion call. There is a public call for all choirs and any vocal groups across our 3 islands to step forward and showcase their talent at this Cayman Christmas event. Yes. There is an opportunity. There is a chance to win 3 cash prizes. First prize is $2,500. Second place prize is $1,500, and third place will go home with $500. So we're encouraging you, if you got the talent, you got the skills, this is a call. It's happening this Saturday to register at yschevents@gov.ky to secure your spot. And who to tell? I'm going to put this email there. To who to tell? You could be the lucky winner of one of those cash prizes. So if you got the skills, you got the vocals, yeah, I suggest you email them, tell them you're interested in entering this. And I want everybody else, even if you can't sing, to mark your calendars for this Saturday, December 6th from 4 to 10, and come out and shop local, support small businesses, and enjoy the music, the food, be a part of the celebration. I can remember the days when Georgetown lit up between Bayreuth, Kirk Plaza, and Colmart. OMG, let's bring that back to town. Yes, please, please, please. Let's bring that back to town. Yeah, hoping to see you. And if you see me out there, just give me a nod, a tap on the shoulder, say hi. I'd like to put the faces to the names because some of you that be Shaka Zulu, I would like to see who Shaka Zulu is. Shaka Zulu, if you see me out town on Saturday, just tap me now. Tap me. I guess everybody would be tapping me now, then I'll still be confused. But it's good. Let's make sure we go out and support our small businesses, right? Oh, have you guys heard? Just moments before, what was this? Just moments before I came live, I saw where our government has just unveiled the new gov.ky. Yeah, it is envisioned that this is going to be faster, clearer, easier way to use the @gov. And it's more than just a website is what they're promising. It's a symbol of how the Cayman, this platform is building a digital Cayman. Yeah. So gov.ky as making their step into their modernization into this digital world that we are. And, they're going to be able now to do from this actual website, online payment systems, e-government portals, here we go, digital IDs and strides in opening data. So these are like building blocks to getting us there, modernizing how we interact, engage with government. And pretty much it's promised to give you easier access to, let's say, forms and services and trusted information that comes from this dedicated site, right? And then for businesses, it is actually streamlining. What is envisioned is that it's streamlined processes and less red tape. And for the average person that is using it, more efficiency and less duplication of efforts and works. And for all of those persons who may just happen to land on there because you're wanting to engage or transact business with a government agency that you can't get these services anywhere else, it gives you clearer guidance and resources that is all in one spot, not getting different versions. So we're hoping that, all the ministries and departments will be joining this at some point, is what is envisioned in 2026. And it is actually building what is earmarked as a smarter infrastructure, digital health records, fintech innovation, and it's also a platform that you can learn. So whether or not it's coming, and I'm quite sure they're going to be letting you know, your feedback is welcome as well. And, at the end of the day, digitizing our jurisdiction isn't just about replacing people. However, because at some point we're still going to need them, they make systems more efficiency. However, at the end of the day, it may not be the intention, but if we upskill ourselves accordingly, maybe you can actually be one of those who are there for the test of time. And as I've navigated this whole new space, oh my God, it's kind of intimidating though. Oh yeah, it's a bit intimidating. But once you get into the groove of things, you actually work smarter and not harder. So the future is being built right now, and gov.ky is just a start. As this continues, we will definitely follow it through. We'll give you updates, and I'm quite sure they're going to do their PR on it as well. But I thought it was good for me to share it with you because it popped up in my messages, and I thought it would be good to share it with you. But for those of you just joining me today, it's good to have you. We're going to be, you've been asking clause by clause interpretation of the Immigration Transition and Amendment Validation Bill 2025. Thus far, we, again, it's going to go to Parliament on December 10th. So we will continue to unpack this bill and what it really means for Caymanians and residents, from new certificates, as I said at the beginning, to stricter timelines and residency, marriage, and annual declarations. We're going to break it down in plain language. That's what I aim to do here this evening. Who qualifies under the new rules or laws, what changes for families and spouses and even dependents as well. There's certain protocols that will actually come under this, and why compliance matters. Responsibility definitely is going to be placed more on applicants and holders of certain certificates, and how failure to file and notify WORC could cost you your status. Yeah, it's real. It's in there. So if it's an oversight, if you fail to report, all of that, we're going to break it down right here. So let's get into it. Again, 936-8255 is the number to call to join in and participate on this. Should you have any questions, queries, or other questions that you want to, or just weigh in on the conversation, you are more than welcome to. Okay. Now, we already broke down the transition clause. Denny, Mr. Balika, weighed in on this, the sellout clause. So there were other parts of the causes, and it's huge. Guys, it's a lot. And we still are not aware of the 15 amendments that is actually came about from the town hall meetings. I haven't seen what those amendments will be. And we still haven't. Again, if somebody has the immigration regulations that will accompany this bill, please let me know, but it's still not in the public's domain. So even in trying to break this down in layman's terms, other questions kept popping up in my head, but I couldn't really even refer to anything current because it would require regulations. So it's hard to do this, but we're going to work with what's in the public's domain until they decide to release certain things to the public to make it all make sense. Okay, let's look at cause 5, which is amended. And cause 5, and I'm going to try to do this in dictation style for you, which is section 11 of the principal law of the law itself and what is being proposed as a consequence of a new section. So section 49A is a new insert into the law, and I read, that provides for certificates for commercial farm hands. You have deck hands that works on boats. Now you got farm hands. And this clause, as stated by the law, provides among the functions of powers of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman Immigration Board, so that their powers to process and determine these new application types, okay? And these applications will be for commercial farm hands, okay? Now, 49A1, the certificate for a commercial farmhand may be issued in accordance with this section to the employer of a person specified in subsection 2 to permit the person to work or continue to work with the employer at an agricultural enterprise named in the certificate in the capacity of a commercial farmhand or in another capacity where the person is caring for a farm or cultivating land. So let's say you have somebody right now as a farm helper. And once you're under that type of premise, under the present law that is at hand, once and if this law is passed as being proposed, they can now actually change their job title, change their work permit to be labeled as a commercial farmhand. And in layman's terms, what this clause is saying from what interpretation was given, or what I can get from it for this purpose of all of you guys out there who own land and you're farming and you got these persons on there, you know that this certificate actually says if you're 65 and older, you can't apply for it. And if you're not 65 yet, at the time that you apply for it, immediately once you turn 65, it makes the certificate void. But let me break it down. This law is being updated because before there was nothing pretty much outside just going through the regular work permit process. And it is adding a new responsibility as well to Cayman and Little Cayman Immigration Board. That's what this particular section is doing. Because this new law is about exactly what I explained to you: commercial farmhand, commercial workers working on a farm. And the board now will have the official powers to receive these applications from employers who want to hire farm workers under this certificate. And also the boards there would also be able to renew those applications and making sure that they meet the requirements, okay? And the board then will be empowered to approve or reject these applications if you don't meet the scenarios. Let's say criteria. Let's say you don't have an issue with medical insurance or that age, you're over 65. It doesn't matter. The law is clear when it comes to this age thing. They are very clear. What has happened in the past was there was no special farmhand certificate, and that is why this is a total new section that will be added in. So this is a new application that is born on this immigration reform. So there was no farmhand certificate in the system here in Cayman before this is now being introduced. And what had happened was agricultural workers were actually handled under the general work permit system, where they were processed by the relevant boards or later by WORC. So what this bill is proposing is it's creating a dedicated category for these farmhands, which did not exist before, which kind of clarifies it and it pretty much says it for itself. So what is changing for how they were handled under the current law is that they are going to be clearly identified. And this particular clause makes it clear that the Cayman and Little Cayman boards will now they will have power, explicit power to process farmhand certificate. Now, like again, this is a shift from the past where they were all lumped into the whole general work permit system without a dedicated category. You won't find that anywhere else. Now they have a dedicated category for themselves. But remember what I said at the beginning, persons can't be age 65 or older to apply for this. They would not be eligible. And once you become age 65, and I quote, the certificate for commercial farmhand ceases to be valid on the holder of the certificate attaining the age of 65, end quote. That's exactly what it's saying, okay? So that's it for the agriculture people there. Now, of course, you're going to have to apply. It's the same applies. You make the application. I can't tell you what the fees are going to be because we don't have regulations. I can't tell you outside of making sure that the person has the regular requirements of medical insurance, that sort of stuff. You do your, I guess, police record and your photo, like a regular work permit. But it's hard for me to state what the processing fee is going to be like. what the approval fee is going to be like, because that is only going to be revealed in the regulations. That's why it's so important to have regulations side by side when you're actually breaking this down. Okay, so there you have it for all our farmers. And another thing too, if you were someone working on a farm before and you have already been impacted by rollover, and let's say you've already started your rollover, you still have to wait for the 1 year before you can come back. Yeah. So you still have to wait, not because this is an application. You still have to finish your rollover, and then your employer, upon your return, can apply for this new application. Okay. So that is something to think about. Now, again, subject to any changes that are being made public, because it keeps hanging over our heads that the minister did actually say publicly that there are 15 changes. Until those 15 changes are made public, we don't know what they are. So anything that I say here is subject to change because of those 15 changes that was announced that nobody knows about. And anything that I can't answer where fees are concerned specifically is because I don't know the regulations, and the regulations are not yet made public. Good to know. This affects my business. You are more than welcome, Donnie. Yeah, so it's good to know. This is why these things, we take it down and we just, break it down in small pieces so that everybody can digest this. But it's good. But the key is, Donnie, make sure the age. And if somebody's already here and on a regular, let's say farm helpers work permit, or they still got time left in their term limit, you will have the ability to change them to this once this law has been come into effect and this is approved. So that's also food for thought. As long as a person has time remaining in their term limit and is not 65 or older, they can apply for this. So number of things to consider. Okay. We go on to clause 7. Yeah, there we go. It says clause 7 amends section 20 of the Principal Act to delete the reference of appeals in respect to student visas, as student visas are dealt with under Customs and Border Control Act 2024 revision. Okay. Remember when they separated customs and immigration, because we were all lumped under one? Some is dealing with the border, some is dealing with more administrative applications like your work permit, your status, and that sort of stuff. That is why extensions, visitors extension, visitors visas, student visas, and that sort of stuff now is more dealt with on the CBC, Cayman Islands Border Control Department. Permanent resident status, amendments to work permits as a whole then is dealt with on the more administrative side. That's WORC. That was a separation that took place. So what this actual clause is saying is that the current Immigration Act used to mention that people would appeal decisions about student visas under that law. But now student visas are no longer handled under the Immigration Act. They're going to now be handled under the Customs and Border Control Act of 2024 revision. So what that particular section is saying is that immigration, and I told you a part of this reform is cleaning up some things that may have been overlooked when they were separating the two. And this is basically a cleanup Immigration Act by removing the outdated reference to student visas appeals. So maybe this was something that was a simple oversight when they did the separation, and now this is a cleanup exercise for this section, because then you had a certain portion of those applications being dealt with by CBC, but then if you had to appeal it, you appealed it to work. It didn't make sense. So what this is doing right now, if a student visa was denied, the appeal process was mentioned in the Immigration Act. But since student visas are now handled under the Customs and Border Control Act, the Immigration Act does not need to talk about it anymore. That's it in layman's terms, right? So all they're doing is deleting the old mention of student visas appeals because now they're covered under a different law. So what it really does is, because we all know it, even me myself kind of get confused. You got to think of it border admin. That's how I have to separate it. It avoids confusion, to be honest with you, making sure that only one law, which in this case for these applications, Customs and Border Control Act, right, will deal with student visas now. So you don't go to Mary Street if you have a student visa application or you need to an appeal. You will go to Elgin Avenue across from Government Admin Building to deal with anything called visas. And it actually helps with consistencies. It keeps Immigration Act focused on exactly what I'm saying: work permits, residency, right to be Caymanians, and other immigration matters, and just not student visas. That is pretty much what it is. And it's efficient because students in schools now pretty much, there are visa issues. And that's why border is actually dealing with it, right? So there you go. I hope that makes it clear for any person who is here on student visas, so that you get that in. There's a lot of information. I see what those guys were saying when they were talking, because it's just so, yeah, finally. It was confusing at first, literally. And until the law is changed, they literally had to go to WORC to do an appeal because there wasn't no legal mechanism for CBC to actually deal with appeals. So now this is going to deal with that. Further, also into this section, this clause 7, it also amends the law by introducing prescribed financial standing requirements. Yeah, they're looking at the financial side of things now, that the applicant under this section with dependents must be allowed to, must meet, if they're here and they're under an appeal, the applicants with dependents must meet the allowed amount to remain in the islands by the Director of Work. Now, you want to hear what I tell you. What is the allowed amount? What is the allowed amount? We knew that under, we saw where the fees had increased based on dependents. And I'm trying to find that. I'll find it for you. But really what this additional section for this amendment is saying is that Section 20 of the Immigration Acts that's dealing with immigration appeals, when someone challenges a decision about their immigration status, right? It's going to be tabled, Vanessa. It's going to be tabled on the floor of Parliament on December 10th. It's not yet in effect because it hasn't even been debated on, but this is what is being proposed to the public as some of the changes. We don't know when it will come into effect because it has to now, it's going to be debated. This is just an information show letting you know what the government is recommending. We don't know what the effective date will be at this time. So you got to keep it locked to this space and we will definitely update you. We will be following the parliamentary proceedings as well, Vanessa. So Denver soon get to you. What this section is really saying is that Immigration Act deals with these appeals, and if somebody challenges the decision, we all know how long appeals can take, right? About their immigration status during the appeal process. This particular amendment is adding a new rule. That's where the change is. If the person is making an appeal, has dependents, like children or a spouse that they have to support, or even others, they must show that they have sufficient financial resources in order to support themselves and those dependents. Now, also in that, the Director of Work, Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman, that's a mouthful, they will also have the task of checking the financial standing before allowing them and their dependents as well to stay in the islands while the appeal is being decided on. So this is a key takeaway. because before, nothing like this was actually cited in the law. So this is an addition to make sure that they have sufficient financial resources to support themselves and their dependents while an appeal is going through. So imagine someone's immigration application is refused and they have appealed the decision. Now, if that person and his family members, depending on them, they just can't stay in Cayman during this appeal. They can't just stay here idle hands. No, unless they prove that they can afford to maintain themselves and their dependents, they're not going to be allowed to remain to await the outcome of an appeal. So what this is basically saying, if you want to stay here with your family while your case is being processed or being reviewed, in this case for an appeal, you need to show clearly that you have enough money to take care of your dependents. And it is important because when it comes to families, for families in themselves, it actually will prevent situation where dependents are left without financial support and during this whole legal process. And then on the hands of government, when you look at it from the government side, I try to look at it all sides, right? It will ensure that people appealing immigration decisions aren't relying on public funds while waiting, or some of them may find themselves working without work permits. And for the applicants themselves, it sets clear, crystal clear requirements that they must demonstrate some financial stability and standing if they want to remain here with their dependents during the appeal. Remember the details of the revenue measures for 2026 and 27, section 16, I just pulled it. It says, and I quote, in relation to permanent residence and Caymanian status fees, there will be a new or increased fees for permanent residence holders, including 1, new dependent fees, which will increase from 500 to 750 per dependent per year. And the annual declaration fees for permanent residency holders increasing from 100 to 500. So what I'm seeing is that even though if it is approved, if your appeal is approved, it's no longer going to be 500. It's going to be 750. That was a part of some of the revenue measures. But this isn't while. This isn't after it is approved. This is while you're waiting. And that, my friends, we don't know what the household income threshold is going to be, because here we go again, that would be cited in the regulations. So even though you're waiting, we don't know what that number will look like, because that will be cited or called for in the regulations. Let's see what Mr. Denver saying before I go on to clause 8. All right. Student visas should only be for our college and universities, not schools of any other classification. Student visas. We usually find these student visas, Denver, for those who are not of, let's say they're old and they're over 18, but still college and can't be included as not working, not on a work permit, but still is a dependent, let's say on a work permit or a RERC. And that permission, they're over 18, and that can go up to 21. And it has been a little challenging because I've always cautioned parents of children or young adults, let me say it, because those are the ones that are usually the most testy. In my old days, where we would have, where we would have the children accompany the parents, and the kids decide, they know that they're here on a student visa. And they decide, I don't want to do a term. They don't have the luxury of skipping a term, skipping a semester, if they're here on a student visa. They don't have that luxury because it is subject to them being full-time students. And this can cause a lot of stress on parents where they're trying to make their kids finish their tertiary studies here. And also, in many cases, try to meet the legal and ordinary resident requirement to possibly be eligible for permanent residence in their own rights or even Caymanian status, these children. And these children are wanting now to either cut school, and their facility only allows them to be here on a student visa. What happens if that is the case? And I hope immigration picked this up now that I'm talking about this. If that is the case and the kids decide, I don't want to go to school, I want to get a job. Remember now, they're not Caymanian. They would automatically, because they wouldn't be no longer deemed as a student, they would fall away as a dependent on the residence and employment rights certificate. Let's say you're a spouse of a PR holder, spouse of a Caymanian. Those kids making that independent decision, once they're over 18, automatically falls away and no longer is a dependent. Yeah. If they decide that they want to get a work permit, then they're left out in the wilderness and hope that the work permit is approved. So a lot of them are not of the age to even understand how technical it is once you go down the path, especially if you're not 18 yet, not reaching the eligibility period or the legal non-ordinary resident requirement to apply for permanent residence in your own means. And sometimes their only saving grace is remaining a full-time student. And I have seen parents cried. I have seen kids just pretty much, young adults, sorry, they're not kids, young adults just lash out. They go to school, their parents are paying out of pocket, they're not Caymanian, they can't get a scholarship, and they waste their parents' money because their parents are just trying to solidify their immigration status here, and they find the money, fork up the money to send them to school, and these kids just, they're lashing out because they don't want to go to school, they want to go to work, and the parents have a clear understanding of the challenges when it comes to getting work permits here. So I hope that some of the young adults who are listening to me and understanding that their parents are making huge sacrifices right now to keep you here on a student visa, hoping that you'd get a tertiary education, bring home the grades, and then if you want to go off to university on your own steam, then you go. But many a times it is to actually protect you for going on to the next status. Yeah, I'm saying it, to acquiring Caymanian status, because some of these children come here at age 13, 12, 13, and by the time they reach age of 18, some of them would not have been here for 7 years to be able to meet the requirement. I know this immigration reform is trying to stop all of that, but let me tell you, there will always be those possibilities, because if you don't get it through the work permit, if you don't get it through the student visa, guess what? They could probably end up marrying very early. And this is why our gatekeepers need to gatekeep. Now, I say that, let's spin it on the other side. For those persons who are here, and we don't want to bar anybody, just let me make it clear, who may want to better themselves and go to school. But look at how lopsided it is. Look at how lopsided it is. You could be here on a work permit and you don't need a student visa to go to school. Yeah, but you can't be here on a student visa and go to work. So that has been a debate as well. And I think that that should be explored. Maybe that's one of the 15 amendments. I don't know. Yep. So there you go, Donnie. You said it. You said it. Yep. And we know that some of them still work. They are still working. So these are some of the things that, it's really hard to call it. And unless somebody actually calls it out, you don't know, because these kids are under the radar. Unless they fail in their grades and immigration, do these midway checks to see, ask for results and sign the confidentiality clause that immigration work CBC actually can go to these college and universities to find out attendance records, grades, if there's certain GPA and all this sort of stuff, to find out if their accounts are in good standing. unless enforcement arm does this, these kids are out here on a student visa. They could possibly be working, or they could not. Some of them may not be going to school, and you would not know until the renewal of the student visa comes about, and or you realize that there's trouble in the camp, and the parents now are educated to say, look, if your kid's not going to school, they don't have the choice to say, I'm going to miss a semester, because this grant of a student visa says you have to be a full-time student. Okay. Things happen. Sometimes these young adults gets pregnant, and nothing stopping them from going to college and university if they're going to be expecting. But that changes as well the rules of the game as well. So this is something that requires constant support. It is also another opportunity that if that door isn't closed, it'll be another way in. Nothing is bulletproof. People will always be crafty. And when it comes to your children and dependents, people will do what they have to do to try and get it done. But this is in the Western world norm to be able to pursue education without issue. If you already have a legal work permission to work in a country that you're not a citizen of. But isn't it Western world norm to be able to pursue education? Yeah, without issue. If you already have a legal work permission to work in a country, you're not. Yes, thank you, Tisha, for that question and statement all in one. Yeah, this is why. But you see then where nobody, which I said at the beginning, nobody's saying you can't better yourself. But what I'm trying to say, the same does not apply when it comes to working. If you're only here on a student visa, you don't have the right to work when you're here only on a student visa. But if you're here on a work permit, because of where we are, you can go to school to better yourself. But if you're here only on a student visa, you do not have any legal rights to be applying for a job or working for anybody. You're just here as a student. Yeah. What about the politicians that pay the school fees? Oh, dear Jesus, for the vote fee. To each his own until you can prove it. My God. There we go. There we go. There we go, Dean. Sounds like this good ship Cayman has a lot of holes. Well, look, if I educate you, I'm here to say that at the end of the day, no law is worth anything unless you have enforcement in place. And this is why I will continue to advocate, and Dawn can support me here, having been a child, having been employees of immigration when it was under one umbrella. We saw the importance of funding. We saw the importance of training. We saw the importance of making sure you have the necessary skill sets and tools in order for you, including manpower, to actually do your job. So it's no different right now where enforcement officers are concerned. And I'm putting them all in one lump for the sake of this conversation. Our guys are going to have to be constantly trained on case file management, which means they're going to be needing funding. They're going to be able to sensitize them, how to hold and withhold information, how to do investigations. And even if, God forbid, you have to investigate somebody that could be your neighbor or your friend or somebody that you go to wet fets with. Come to think about, a long time I hear about one name. Yeah, I digress. But at the end of the day, you got to do your job. You're there to enforce. You're there to uphold the law. And there is no friend or foe when it comes to that. And if we don't enforce these, then all of these good amendments, yeah, I said good, because that's what Caymanian people are asking for reform. But reforms will mean diddly squat if they're not enforced. Okay. Jasmine, good evening, everyone. Oh, really? Oh, it's snowing in Connecticut. Keep it, girl. Keep it. Just send us some cool breeze. Send us a northwester. Good to have you joining us, my love. It's always good to have hear from our people all over the world, in the United States as well. Yes, because you're international. Donnie, yeah, we know it all. Hope to take, yeah, I hope they take our advice. It is, I'm just hoping that we will, well, budget is gone, finance committee is gone. But I'm really hoping that they prioritize making sure, keep that, Jasmine, you keep all of that snow, just send us the breeze. I just hope that they will direct their funding to upskilling, because you're investing in those Caymanians that are working there and giving them the right resources and funding so that they can know how to case file, manage, and break down the immigration WORC laws so that they will know what their powers are. One may say, well, how the heck they enforcing if they don't know? Trust me. Trust me. I don't need to say anymore. This is by no means belittling anyone, but sometimes customer service training, revamping the laws, because this is a huge overhaul in legislation, and multiple government agencies are going to have to play their role when it comes to enforcing these things should this become law. Okay, it's not going to be any more silos. And I'm seeing where in a part of this where there's a MOU where they can share information between various government agencies. Love it, love it, love it. I love it, because now it's enshrined in legislation that allows them to do that. It's no longer, this my data, no your data, you go find it yourself. And it's duplicating of efforts, when yet we're all trying to be a better, where legislation is concerned, to deal with immigration issues. So yes, I'm hoping that the staff will be brought up to date with these in layman's terms, and just highlight for the purpose of their roles to know exactly, this is your powers. These are your powers. This is what you can do when you put on your uniform, when you're out there. This is your powers. And this is what we're looking for. So trust me, knowledge is power. And this is why I'm taking the time out to do this in layman's terms. It's not by any means belittling anybody. But if the public is educated, parents in this case for the student visa, students themselves will understand. And of course, all of those who are charged with being our gatekeepers of this legislation, you will probably look at your role totally different and be empowered in the way you execute your duties. Hi, Tartarian, how are you? That's a loophole. Getting pregnant on a student visa. She shouldn't be sent home to have that baby. Teachers should be asked to be vigilant and report it to immigration and the Ministry of Education. You see what I tell you? You see? Exactly. Because it's real. It happens. It happens. Now we're just looking at the mama. What if the daddy is the one who is actually on the student visa? You see? You got to look at it in its totality, because he would be entitled to right to family life, bonding for that child as well. Yeah, because even though he's not carrying the child, he would have a right. So we have to look at both genders. But yes, Tartarian, I know you waited on that because of the analogy that I gave, the example that I gave. But now looking at it wider afield with this loophole, that loophole could possibly impact, if in this case, it could impact the father. Because where one is being a full-time student, they may want to get a work permit to try and protect that child and still then continue to go to school, doing 3 roles: going to school, working, and being a daddy. So it's pretty interesting. Miss Carol, good evening. How are you, my love? Hope you're doing well. Happy holidays to you. Let's move on to clause 8. That's an amendment now to section 21 of the current law. And it reads, the effect of which is to provide for appeals to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal by persons who are aggravated by decisions of the Director of Work relating to A. This is talking about now appeals. Listen now. If you are dealing with an appeal because the you lost residence and employment rights certificate under Section 40 of the law. If you're dealing with an appeal of a certificate for a commercial farmhand under the proposed new law of 49A, let's see. C is the revocation of permission to reside permanently in the islands based on the Director of Work coming to the conclusion that the relevant marriage, just a catch on the now. C says, let me read it back. The revocation of permission to reside permanently in the islands based on the Director of Work coming to the conclusion that the relevant marriage is a marriage of convenience, or the relevant civil partnership is a civil partnership of convenience. Let me break that down in good old English now for you, okay? Because how these clauses are written, again, Danny, your ear gonna be ringing. The average person is not going to be able to just pick this up and understand that. And then you got to go and you got to see what Section 40 says under the principal law. And then you got to make, okay, I'm cleaning all of that up for you, but you got to follow me, okay? Don, what are you saying? That needs to change because of bonding, really. There we go, Denver. Well, kudos to MP Michael Miles for taking the bull by the horns. We need more politicians with backbone like him, Jay and Ralston. There you go. That, and I'll leave it up there for those to bask in that moment. Now, what this actual is saying is that Clause 8 changes Section 21 of the Immigration Act so that people who feel wronged, if you feel aggravated, if you feel that you were dealt with unfairly by a decision that an immigration board, the Status and Permanent Residency Board made, right? If you're wronged by certain immigration decisions made by even the Director of Work, you can appeal to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal. But specifically, appeals can be made to WORC to decide whether, and this particular section that I'm saying is just why it's good for you to realize it or hear it in layman's terms. If taking away your residence and employment rights, that is known as RERC, this is the document that allows someone to live and work here for a long time. And, or two, the second part of it, if, these appeals refuse or cancel a certificate for a commercial farmhand. Remember that new application for those who are working on farms? If WORC refuses or cancels a certificate for commercial farmhands, the new work permit for agricultural workers under Section 49A, or the revocation of permanent residency, because WORC believes that the marriage or civil partnership that gave someone the residence is not genuine, but instead a marriage of convenience. That used to be done only to get immigration, if that is done to get immigration benefits. So what really this law is saying is that if work makes a big decisions against an applicant, against you, like canceling your right to work or live here, denying this farmhand certificate, or even revoking your RERC because they deem that your marriage is not legit, you don't have to just accept it. That's what this is saying. You can take your case to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal for review. Now, I know some of you may say that they knew that. That has always been there. Yeah, but that farmhand was not there, okay? What this does, it gives both sides fairness because it gives people a chance to challenge. If you feel that there's nepotism, favoritism, somebody got friends in there, it gives you the opportunity to challenge WORC's decision instead of just being stuck with their decision. If you feel that somebody is just doing something against you, the board, the council just got some issues, there may be a member that said things that is not true, that may have yield to a decision, not that what you were looking for, you have the right to appeal the decision. And what that does, where fairness is concerned, it also gives you checks and balances, because it also ensures that WORC isn't just a final authority, right? I know some of you may say this takes forever, but trust me, it will save us from bigger lawsuits at the end of the day. And WORC then in this case is not just a final authority. And there's an independent tribunal, the Immigration Appeals Tribunal, that is there to hear your appeal. What it also gives is some sort of protection and safeguards against possible mistakes, oversights, or unfair judgments, as I alluded to, especially in sensitive cases like we're seeing marriages or long-term residency. So at the end of the day, that is what that is there for, so that it's not just final and binding only by one body. And there's another step after that as well, you know. If the appeals upholds the decision of WORC and they, appeals tribunal, say, we're going to stand by the decision the WORC board, status PR board, whomever has made, you still have a right to judicial review. Yeah, that you need an attorney to do. You will need an attorney to do that, okay? Rosemary, how are you? Can a government worker put in a work permit for his or her spouse if they are living for 9 years? Can a government worker put in a work permit for his or her spouse if they're living for 9 years? The worker is a Caymanian. Non-Caymanian workers can't apply for a work permit unless I need more context. That's just not a straight up answer. Yeah, more context is needed. He has his PR. PR holders can't apply for work permits unless there's, again, I need more context for this. If they have a trading business, let's say they're a shareholder of a company, he has PR. So the PR holder wants to apply for a work permit for his spouse. Put it all together and let's see if we can hash that out. Yeah. I think we need to look into this Cayman that we have imported, this island, Interpol, and an FBI. Once upon a time, for big applications like PR of independent means, I think there was a time too that status application, when you were here for 10 years or more, that they used to run you through Interpol. And I think that stopped. I stand to be corrected. Unless something is red flagged, then that's only when it's escalated, because we were seeing where it was taking forever to get those findings back, which of course it is Interpol. And there was a subscription fee. I think that should be reintroduced. To be honest with you, I've heard on other platforms that people were asking for Interpol to be done straight across the board, because you can't trust the police records. I think this may actually get a little controversial. With facial recognition and biometrics, that's going to actually help a lot. But again, it's going to take time to get there. And with what we're seeing in the digital space, I think time is going to come where all of these systems are going to be connected, that how we actually do searches here in the islands to do background checks on people will actually be streamlined if we start doing mass fingerprinting and digital facial imagery. Now, bearing in mind, some of these Interpol checks, if you have not been found guilty of any crimes internationally, let's say you're here under an assumed identity, and we could go all over the place with these scenarios, the person that's before you, how do we know that that's the person? So unless they've been committing a crime, it's hard. But it does actually help. It gives you some comfort. Is better than none. That's just something that WORC would possibly have to fund, and what specific applications would be subject to Interpol. I feel that if somebody has been here for 8, 9, 10 years on work permits, and all of a sudden they're applying for permanent residence at year 8 or year 9, and they're going to be running through Interpol now, and something comes up, they've been here for 9 years already. So the question may be asked, should we start doing it from the get-go, like work permits? Because you could have those persons entering here, be here for 9 years, and you do a deeper search in these individuals 9, 10 years after you've been here, we wouldn't know who we were harboring. Likewise, even those who come in under as spouse of Caymanians, spouse of PR holders, newlyweds that may not necessarily go through the work permit system, that have never been in our system before. Maybe that's something that those persons joining us could be something that you actually do Interpol for. So now that we're talking it through, I think that's something that they could possibly look into, because we used to do it. It used to be, back in the day when I was in immigration, they used to do it. Yeah. Thank you, Lord, for the new government. There we go, Miss Carol. Denver. Where am I? See ya. I'm talking about the Muslim. Oh, we have imported to practice Islam in Cayman. Freedom of religion and that sort of stuff. Let me tell you something. You can't bar them for that, to be honest. And those are one of the things. You saw he was on Sandra's show, and I think cultural differences is huge. And I'm hoping that what was explained on that platform, that both sides, well, at least theirs, based on what was said, the religion is one thing, but the personalities and cultures that come with what I'm thinking you're going at is that we need to, and I see how the Caymanians stood up and defended who we are, and respect is due on all fronts. So I got apology from that guest on the Cold Hard Truth, and it speaks volumes of who we are as Caymanians without being prejudiced, being respectful of other people's choices as well. But it was loud and clear that whatever, I didn't see what was posted. I didn't see, I can't comment on it, but whatever it was actually struck a lot of nerve here to that community. And it struck a nerve here for Caymanians, thinking it was disrespectful. And I'm hoping that lesson was learned on that side, that you are welcome here, but you have your boundaries. So yeah, at the end of the day, I got the fact that he apologized, and hoping that we can all coexist here respectfully, no matter who you decide to serve. Denver, yes, anyone can. Don't mean it will be granted depending on the circumstance and history, Denver says. Someone pretending to be me in your courts, extempore, who to trust. Oh, real Michelle, how are you, my love? See ya. I'm sorry, but don't trust. Oh, okay. We can't just, unfortunately, we just can't do that. We're seeing where hate crimes are coming, because in the US, where there's just people hating other people because of their religious beliefs. Now, these people are going to have to do some homework, probably based on what back in the day, history context, and what and how they believe, and yada, 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 people that have given them a bad impression. Maybe they got to do some homework and have a little bit of humility. But cultural difference, Western way of life, and where they're coming from, even genders is an issue. Females are seen less. And we are subservient, and that doesn't work here in this part of the world. And I feel the mere fact that they're coming here, want to live amongst us, that is a personal cultural shift that they have to get accustomed to, not us having to get accustomed to what they want to actually change, because it has to be a balance. And we shouldn't have to conform ourselves to your way of life when you have made the decision to come and live here. And I feel respect goes both ways. That's my take on that. Tartarian. I agree, we need to keep an eye on the Muslim preacher, Ayman. Oh, the question is, who took out his work permit? No one should be here preaching hate. Other countries are kicking them out. There we go again, Tartarian. Thank you for that. I didn't even know that what he need. That is the enforcement arm. And I'm quite sure you have to look at the conventions of our Constitution, the terms and conditions of what grounds were made for the work permit and all that sort of stuff. But the mere fact that the work permit was approved, if it is an organized NPO, a church, then, and if followed all the checks and balances, here we go again, based on our laws, and no laws were breached that allowed them then to be approved a work permit, you cannot wrong the people for applying. If we don't want them and it's a delicate balance, people have the right. So yeah, it's a delicate dance. Good evening, Denny. What hole did you crawl out from? Welcome to the show.
From the real world.
How are you?
Not bad.
What's up? What's on your mind?
Religious thoughts
Mhm.
versus a political movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I only caught the first part of the show where they came on and to describe what they meant by the comments made of wanting to be separate from the Christian influence. But in the portion that I heard,
Mm-hmm.
what I heard him say is something where he basically gave the impression
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, they believe in Jesus as well. And someone had sent in a message, I think it was, asking if Allah was like the person that we refer to as God the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And he said yes, because they see Allah as the God of Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
But then, um, about Jesus, later on, they said, well, we don't really believe in the concept of father and son. And it was kind of disjointed like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and then a few sentences later, I think it was, he said that they don't believe that Jesus died and that he ascended into the clouds and he would return in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you know anything about the gospel, you will know that what they are saying is an anti-Christian gospel,
Mm-hmm.
because there is no point in Jesus coming to earth unless he was coming to do what God had required for the forgiveness of sins, which it means that, like, for example, if you go to court today for speeding,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say the judge pass a sentence of an amount that you couldn't afford to pay,
Mm-hmm.
someone else could pay it for you. Well, Jesus, because we can't, we're disqualified from being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, the only option for our redemption is for him to die in our place to satisfy the requirements of God's law, in
Mm-hmm.
order that God may be just. Because unlike humans, God just can't say, well, let's just forget about that. Let's pretend it didn't happen. It doesn't work like that with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so he died in our place. He was buried and he rose again on the third day. This is well documented in even secular history, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they denied the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus by saying they don't believe he died, that he ascended into the clouds. In other words, those who may have believed that they were somehow on our side by saying they believe in Jesus too, he wasn't saying that he believes that Jesus is the Messiah who came to die for our sins. He's saying that he believed that Jesus existed and he was a prophet, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what the gospel teaches. Okay. And the gospel of Jesus actually started back in Genesis chapter 3, which is way back when Adam and Eve were the only two humans that had been created. Because when they fell, it became necessary to provide a way for redemption.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to appreciate is that what they're saying is woefully incompatible with Christianity. It's not that they sort of believe in similar to us and just has a few differences. They are rejecting the core purpose of the gospel. Furthermore, the Quran allows them, while they are the minority, to, let's say, be less than truthful. But when they gain a majority, or they're in a position in which they would be administering the country, then the Quran requires them to insist that you become Muslim. If you choose not to become Muslim, you have an option of paying a tax.
Mm-hmm.
If you refuse to pay the tax, they could cut your head off. Now, I know that to some people, what I'm saying may sound outrageous. I'm just telling you what the Quran says. It's up to you
Mm-hmm.
to decide how you want to receive the information.
So
But
what?
they are incompatible with the Western world because
Exactly.
they believe in an autocracy. Okay, and that's not that. It's not working out well in the UK right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to work out well in the Cayman Islands. And
Exactly. And we don't want that here, is what I'm getting from people.
Well, I can assure you, you don't want it here. Because if you think you're afraid to talk right now, when a politician is willing to look at you with sort of, that look,
Mm-hmm.
imagine when the threat is a knife that takes your head off. You think you're going to talk then? No, you're not going to talk.
So
You're going to be just as scared, and you're going to do nothing. And that will be the end of us.
now we understand we're here in the Western world, and everyone knows, or we're biblical. We believe in God, even though other religions are here. But in this part of the world, the Western world, it is obvious who we serve. Why would someone coming from a different part of the world then come here and want to behave like this? Devil's advocate here. And then hoping that we conform to their beliefs, or am I getting it wrong?
You're not appreciating the gravity of what I said about converting people to Islam.
Mm-hmm. Converting,
I'm
operative word.
I'm not just talking about a suggestion. Listen to the progression.
Mm-hmm.
They are obligated to turn you into a Muslim.
Gotcha.
If you refuse, then they will require you to pay a tax
I got you.
to not be a Muslim. If you refuse to pay the tax, the Quran allows them to cut your head off in public. That is not just a difference of opinion. That is a political movement. You need to let your mind be saturated with the consequences of what you're hearing me say.
So why would that be allowed here? Understanding what we stand for.
It's not gonna be allowed in
No, I
the
mean
sense
the
that
mere fact that they're here. I'm quite sure they applied for something.
Right, but ask yourself this question: why would the UK allow things to play out the way it is in the UK? And the UK is the one with the military. They have the guns, and they are afraid. Caymanians are disarmed, and you think they're going to like somehow be courageous and stand up to them? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's highly improbable.
Hmm.
And if you think it's a joke, there are people who are being arrested in the UK
Mm-hmm.
for what they call Islamophobia.
Yes, I've heard that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me share another little story that happened in the UK. There was an IT consultant who left the UK, went to the US, went to a gun range. No, I think he was shooting on a piece of property, if I remember correctly. He may have gone to a gun range. I just don't remember that detail. But anyhow, he posted some pictures
Mm-hmm.
of him with a firearm on his LinkedIn page. When he got back to the UK, he was arrested. Reason? Because he posted pictures on LinkedIn that might offend some people.
Oh, wow.
Now, so imagine how irrational these kinds of things are that's happening in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
How much more do you think they will tolerate in an outpost that's a significant distance away from them?
Mm-hmm.
Caymanians do not understand what's happening to them. And I honestly tell you, I'm deeply concerned
Mm-hmm.
by how coward we have become. Because the people who built the Cayman Islands were strong people who persevered in odds that were just amazingly difficult. And so we inherited the product of that strength of character, that pure common sense. Okay? But what this miracle that we call Cayman is producing is people who inherited the Cayman Islands are now becoming weak.
Mm-hmm.
And weak people create terrible outcomes. The choice that Caymanians have to make is they need to think about what is happening right now and how they want to change it, and have the courage to change it now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because what we are now, right now, the weakness is what we were becoming yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But what we will be tomorrow is what we're becoming today. And so if you don't like the things you see today, you need to ask yourself, how do you change that trajectory? And it's going to require courage. Because if you think that you're going to keep what we've inherited and preserve and maintain it
Mm-hmm.
without hurting some people's feelings, you're sadly mistaken. There is a myth that Jesus was a pacifist. That is absolutely false. Jesus was not a pacifist. In fact, many times his words were so sharp that I remember when I was going through like the entire Gospels, many times I said to myself, wow, I don't remember people telling me Jesus being this way. Because he would say things like, you guys are a bunch of snakes. He's talking to the religious leaders, you know. He said, you're a bunch of graves that are painted white. That's pretty harsh language. So if you're worried about how somebody might feel about what's best for us, I'm not suggesting we be rude to people.
Right.
I'm saying we need to be firm, we need to be clear, and we need to be courageous. Because if you don't, when it is their turn, you're going to be thinking, but that's not fair.
Mm-hmm. But if you
They're not
keep
going to
quiet,
they're not going to be worried about fairness.
yeah.
Because to answer your question in a very direct way, why would they do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Quran commands it. And they see that as obedience to God. Do I need to explain it any clearer?
Not to me. I got you loud and clear. The question is, what mechanisms are in place that allows or ceases to just avoid this from ballooning? I've seen a comment here that there's a Caymanian over there who has gone into that. I mean,
Well,
you
I've
see what
heard
I'm
that it's
saying?
more than
Yeah.
a Caymanian.
You said, no, this statement, you imagine that girl from Cayman went to England and
Oh,
found Islam.
oh,
That is insane, is what this commenter is
yeah,
saying. And
yeah.
at the end of the day, I think there was something about being in our politics. There was another comment here. What do you do? How do you, for those who, how do you actually toe the line of standing on what we believe here in the Cayman Islands and then balancing persons' choices in their religion? How do you balance that in a society like ours?
Well, we have religious freedom, right?
Right.
So one can believe what they want to believe. But when you say that you're going to require someone to pay a tax if they won't believe what you believe, you're no longer talking about religion.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a political movement.
But
And when you say,
Mhm.
and when it says that in obedience to God, you're supposed to fight the infidels, because that's the language used to refer to non-Muslim believers.
Mhm.
That's not a religious perspective either. That's a political perspective.
Mhm.
And we have, all right, so when you think about our laws, how our laws are constructed, they're constructed from the 10 Commandments. And I know, like, you think about stealing, thou shalt not steal. Well, that's why we have laws against stealing. Thou shalt not murder. That's why we have laws against murdering.
Mhm.
Thou shalt not covet. Why? Because that leads to all sorts of mischief, right? And I know that society does it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but society somehow thinks it's a great. Oh, see that rich person?
Mhm.
Let's tax him more and take the money from him. That's a spirit of covetousness.
Hmm.
All right. So but the point I'm making is that Western society is built on the principles that God laid out, specifically in the Ten Commandments.
Mhm.
And part of the right to life, if the right to life is going to mean anything at all in practical terms, and I'm not talking about anything academic now, then by implication, it means you should have a right to defend that life.
Right.
Which also by implication means that you should have a reasonable means by which you can defend your life. Because having a right to life, but not being able to defend it is no right at all.
Mhm.
And so when someone says, well, I believe that I should be able to cut your head off because you won't do what I think you should do, you're talking about a direct threat to a right to life, which we have as a constitutional
Just
right.
correct.
So we're talking about politics now. This is not religion.
Mhm.
I know it's couched as religion,
Mhm.
but that's part of the deception.
Mhm. Oh my God.
So,
But we're not, that's not going to be diluted. The people will stand by our constitution. And we need to be able to speak to our leaders to make them know that we have founded, that is our bedrock.
well, there's something you just said there that I want to talk about. You said it's our constitution. I don't believe it's our constitution. It is the UK's constitution for us,
Mm-hmm.
because we are not a sovereign
Correct.
nation. Okay, so if it was our constitution, it would have been one that we fashioned the way that we wanted
it.
it. But that's not what we got. We got what they wanted for us. I just wanted, I think that's an important distinction that the
That's
public needs to
that's
bear in mind.
profound. That is profound. And I don't think people
And
realize what it takes to even amend that accordingly.
well, all we can do is ask them if they would consider amending,
amending it. Mm-hmm.
because since we didn't create it, we don't have the authority to amend it.
Amend it.
Right.
And that takes political will.
Right. And individual courage,
Mhm.
because whoever the politicians are that would want to change the document
Mm-hmm.
need to have the support of the public.
It's
And
true.
this is why you can't have a strong, prosperous nation with weak, coward citizens. It's impossible. I'm not using this language
Mm-hmm.
to try to make people feel bad about, these things. I'm just trying to be accurate and
Yeah.
precise
Yeah.
about what I'm saying.
This is facts.
Because I don't want to be having this conversation.
But it's real.
But yes,
It's here.
because we're facing things that requires me to bring it up. Because when I look around, I don't see a lot of people willing to deal with these issues. And if we're not willing to deal with this, trust me, they'll walk right over us as if we weren't there.
There's a question that was posed. What if one of those perverted, sick demons come to Cayman and proclaim the 9-year-old little girl is his wife? Can he claim human rights and continue to be able to rape the little girl here legally?
Well, that's a bit of a controversial thing. Now, it's factual that the Quran supports that. But the reason why me saying that would be controversial is because, just like any other religion, not everyone in any religion studies the religion the way they ought to.
Mm-hmm.
So what it means is that you end up with a lot of people on various subjects that don't actually understand that is the case. And some people believe that it's just explained away, that, oh, it's not like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem with arguments like that is that the reason why it's written in the language that it is, and they support that you shouldn't be translating it into other languages,
Mm-hmm.
that you should learn Arabic to read it, is because they believe that you risk perverting it
Mm-hmm.
by doing that. In fact, that's one of the claims they make about the Bible, that it's been corrupted as a result of translation. And so they make the claim that no, Jesus didn't actually die. He was just a prophet. He wasn't God, a member of the Trinity. He wasn't the Son of God in the sense that we think of him in the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
But and so you end up with people who are not aware that that's what the Quran teaches.
Mm-hmm.
So some people will react by saying, no, it doesn't say that.
Right.
But in truth, in fact, they just are unaware of
Really what it says.
Yeah.
And
But it is there.
And these people, obviously, you're speaking about certain things. These are easily accessible if you actually go searching for it, correct?
Yes, yes,
It's out there
yes,
in a public domain. Now,
yes, it is.
it is, and instead of you hearing and saying, this is what I hear Dennis say, this is what I, you can just Google these things and you can educate yourself
Yeah.
to see exactly. And it kind of makes you wonder then, like we said, political will and putting up our guards, defending who we are, our Western cultures and all that sort of stuff. And goes back to what you said. How do we navigate moving forward, coexisting with all of these different beliefs? What will it take? I think it's
Well,
going to
well,
take all of us doing our part and standing together and in what we believe in, but still some level of respect, and knowledge
yeah,
is
but part
power.
of
Knowledge is
the
power.
I agree, but I'm gonna go beyond what you just said.
Hmm.
In some respects, we have our own governments fighting against us,
Yeah.
and in one area in particular, I want to focus on, which is how many children can we afford to have?
Hmm.
Because you see, part of their um, goal is to win control of not only just the UK, they want control of the US as well. And I'm sure Cayman is included
Mm.
by the number of children that they have. So what is said is that they will win by the womb. And you see, the reason why this is partly the government's fault is because the government has bought into really dumb ideas like, oh, climate change, the world's overpopulated and all that kind of nonsense. The Bible makes it very clear that no, you're not going to have sea level rise that destroys the world. Okay?
Hmm.
The entire reason why the rainbow was created was to be a perpetual promise that the flood that took place with Noah would never happen again.
Hmm.
The water is not what's going to destroy the world.
Hmm.
But he did say what the world would be destroyed by. That's fire. God will destroy the world again by fire.
Hmm.
So you don't need to worry about sea level rise. That's the least of your problems. But if you buy into the argument that we need to only have one child or just maybe two at the very max,
Hmm.
we're gonna lose because they're having 7 and 8. You understand the problem?
Yep. Huge. I got a question. And Danny, I don't think, hear me, Danny. Dennis Pascal is saying, but the question is in plain English: can the wicked pervert claim his religion and bring his 9-year-old wife to visit legally? In this case, Dennis, I can see why Denny was skirting around it.
No, no,
Or
I
not,
no
not
no no no.
skirt, probably
I'm not
wrong
sure.
choice. You had to be. How would you know that that's their wife if they don't declare it? It could be their child, a dependent child. If they understand,
I'm gonna
go ahead.
I just there is lots of other things that normally don't that get discussed that I wanted to talk about. And it's not that I was skirting it. The truth of the matter is I really don't know what the Cayman Islands government
Exactly.
would do. I
Yeah.
just don't know. Now, because what is not clear in my mind is if something is done lawfully in another country, we have this convention
Uh-huh.
of recognizing marriages in other locations, but I am actually not
Under the
sure.
religion, how would this be handled? It's a good
I,
question,
I'm
Dennis.
just
I got
not.
asked that.
I'm not sure.
For this
But
community, how would it work? Yeah.
what I could tell you is that I think I know enough about Sandra to say that she would be appalled.
Mm-hmm. Sandra
Okay,
herself mightn't even realize this it for how we're actually discussing. Good question, Dennis.
but these are just some of the issues that we would have to deal with. Um, in order to get the Cayman Islands back on track. Because I think, I mean, I just feel brokenhearted when I think about where I see Cayman going right now.
Hmm.
And it's being praised as if we're just
I was saying that
doing
to
our
someone
best.
earlier today, that I am actually, it disheartened.
And
Yep.
let me tell you what I think of when I think of the premier. I see laws being put in criminalizing everything that you could possibly think of at a breakneck speed. And I'm asking myself, who's this going to benefit? Well, the lawyers are certainly going to benefit. Yeah. I'm not certain, so certain about how the Cayman Islands ultimately will benefit,
Mm-hmm.
because the laws seem to be structured in a way that the upper class of society will prosper in unbelievable ways. But the middle and lower class people
Mm-hmm.
will have even what little wealth they were able to accumulate
Mm-hmm.
taken from them. Let me give you an example of what I mean when I say this. Perhaps most people could remember the days when you could buy a copy of a popular Office suite application and install it on your computer. You could just keep it on your computer as long as you wanted
Mm-hmm.
because you just owned it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not the case anymore.
Nope.
You have to pay a subscription. And most things are going the route of a subscription, including, I hear Caymanians advocating that transportation be done by subscription. You familiar with that one?
I only heard it. I haven't had the chance to look into it, but yes, I've heard it. I've heard it.
Okay.
I've seen it as well.
Well,
Someone shared it with me.
well, just for the benefit of the listeners, I'm talking about public transportation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Minister Brian at the time came on to Sandra's show, and he was talking about wanting to put um, electric buses in place for us. And he described that as step one. But then he went on to say step two is to look at the legislation to see how we could encourage people to leave their cars and take public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there is a desire by the ruling class that the vast majority of the public, not them, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll have their high priced vehicles, but the rest of us would take public transportation. And the reason that this is important is because what you're doing is you're taking a car that you own
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing away with it. And then you're paying a subscription fee
To-
to ride the bus.
Right.
So, in other words, all of the products and services in society would become subscription based, which means that somebody else sets the rules about
Your
how
movement
you
and
use those
yeah,
things,
correct.
including your freedom of movement,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
which is falls right in line with the idea that you will own nothing.
Hmm.
Okay, that's not a joke. This is what is planned for us.
Mm-hmm.
And how would we be controlled and managed? By AI. AI is mankind's version of God.
Hmm.
In other words, if you think of AI as being superior knowledge, God having superior knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
that is the substitute for God. And since it's more knowledgeable than all of us, we're supposed to submit. Now, can you imagine that technology in the hands of people who believe that you should convert or be taxed or be killed.
Danny, let me just go here. Damian Henry said, which I'd like your opinion on this. In their religion, they're allowed to have multiple wives. How would the laws in Cayman sit with that?
I think there was an incident of that here in the past, but I'm not quite sure how. I would imagine that you would only be allowed to have one wife here,
Yeah,
but since they
you're
were
only
married, since
correct
they're
before.
married somewhere else,
Mhm.
I really don't know.
Would it be
That's not
under the
something
guise of their community? Would there be some hybrid
I
way
don't.
that you're only? These are questions really that will spark a bigger national conversation, I think, as this become more to the front, to the forefront. Here's another comment and question, Danny. From there's Satanism, Satanism, and there is Obia, and there is Church of Scientology. So, do we make space for every religion that wants to come here? Where is the right of the native Caymanian
Well,
or Cayman, native Cayman?
well, it would be next to impossible to stop it from being here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know of a way that you could do that. But see, what I'm talking about is specific things that they believe that's incompatible with the laws of the Cayman Islands. It's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to have a thought in your head
Mm-hmm.
about who created the world and what you believe about that person. That we don't, not yet at least.
Mm-hmm.
They're about to do it in the UK, I think, have thought crimes. But we don't have thought crimes here in Cayman. So someone thinking about certain things isn't a crime. You're punished for your actions. Uh, and and so you can't really stop someone from believing that whether God doesn't exist at all or whatever. But make no mistake about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying that Jesus didn't die on the cross for your sins, that he didn't raise on the third day, that is an anti-gospel. And that is what the Bible refers to as an antichrist.
Hmm.
It's not like as in the antichrist,
Mm-hmm.
but it is an anti-gospel.
Oh wow. This is Danny, I think we're gonna probably need an entire show on this, but are we gonna tackle this on our own based on what we don't know? I know you have done a lot. I can't tell you that I know a lot about it, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know. I'm just amending my streams because I know there's a 7 o'clock, and Sandra told me that we can continue on my platform as long as I don't remove. Hold on, just bear with me. I don't